This past offseason, there were over 300 rookies to get into the NFL, of which only a handful were able to actually make their respective rosters, let alone play. However, there have been a few who've played incredible so far in 2023, so it's time to give them their credit. In this video, we'll take a look at the best rookie player of each NFL team so far this season. So buckle up and make sure to like the video if you find it interesting. Anyways, right away with the Seahawks is Devon Witherspoon. The cornerback out of Illinois was the first one taken in this year's draft, being selected 5th overall. He started the season relatively strong, but eventually broke out against the Giants on week 4. He has the potential to win Defensive Rookie of the Year, and for me, there's no doubt he's the best rookie over in Seattle. Moving on to the Panthers is Bryce Young. This guy was the first overall pick in the draft, so you would expect he's at least the best rookie on his team. So far, he's looking good, even though he isn't in the prettiest of situations. He doesn't look amazing, but there's no doubt this guy has potential. Now for the Browns is DeJuan Jones. The offensive lineman out of Ohio State was one of the most talented players in college football last year, despite being a sort of a risky pick. Still, he's been amazing for the Browns so far in 2023, and he could honestly go on to be a top tier lineman in the NFL soon enough. Up next with the Giants is Deonte Banks. This guy was heavily underrated when the draft process began. However, he made his way up and eventually managed to be a first rounder. His stats don't look very flashy yet, but Banks has shown some signs of promise this season, and he could end up as a pretty good starter sooner rather than later. Now for the Steelers, I have Keanu Benton. He was Pittsburgh's 3rd pick in the draft, and so far, there's no denying he's the best player out of the entire Steelers class. Benton has been playing outstandingly well, and his production has massively helped the Steelers D to deal with Cam Hayward's injury. So far, he's a top 3 D lineman of this class, and the potential he showcases is insane. Moving on to the Dolphins, I have Devon Achane. I knew this guy was going to be a good fantasy pickup, but never would I have expected him to be that productive. Achane's numbers are looking insanely good, and despite he being currently on the injury reserve, he could already make a case as the best running back in this class. I mean, he literally averages over 10 yards per carry, which is totally nuts. Now for the Rams is Puka Nacua. This guy was selected during the 5th round of the draft, and well, most NFL teams are regretting the decision of passing on him. Nacua is currently having a historic start to his career, which was probably in part due to Cooper Kupp being injured, but still, he's pretty talented, and even if he's the 2nd receiver in the team, his ability to make plays hasn't gone unnoticed throughout these first few games. Moving on to the Chiefs is Rashee Rice. He started the season out strong, hauling in 4 passes for 72 yards. After that, he didn't really do much for the Chiefs, even though he did manage to score touchdowns both in weeks 1 and 5. Rice has the potential to be Kansas City's #1 wideout, but it will take a while before he steps in for the team. Now for the 49ers, Jake Moody. Look, San Francisco is an incredibly talented team, but one liability they had this season were definitely rookies. Moody is really the only one who has had some production, and that's even considering he's probably one of the main reasons the Niners are not undefeated anymore. Still, he's been solid and the talent is there, so I'm pretty confident that he'll get there soon. Up next with the Lions, Sam Laporta. Oh, I'ma be honest, I love this guy. Laporta was the 2nd tight end picked up during the draft, and he currently seems as the best one by a wide margin. He's been a key piece in this Lions offense, and I would dare to say he'll eventually make his way into the top 10 way sooner than people may foresee. Moving on is Deuce Vaughn for the Cowboys. Dallas didn't really have an amazing draft, and so the rookie players aren't looking amazing so far. Still, Vaughn has been a bright spot, and despite his production being pretty small sized, he's been the best rookie for the Cowboys throughout these 6 games. Now for the Titans is Tyjae Spears. Look, he's sitting behind one of the best running backs in the NFL in Derrick Henry, so nobody was expecting him to put up big numbers right away. Still, Spears has been solid when called upon, as he's averaging 5.5 yards per carry while already surpassing 170 yards and having a touchdown back in week 5. Up next with the Bengals is DJ Turner. When your name is Juan Drago, I think it's safe to say you're a beast on the field. And well, this guy has certainly lived up to that despite not being a 1st round pick. I know he hasn't recorded an interception just yet, but this guy has been locked down, and I believe he could end up being the best corner in this team eventually. Moving on, Jalen Carter for the Eagles. This was an easy pick, probably one of the easiest out of the entire video. Carter has been automatic this season, racking up some pretty insane stats. I think he's playing so good, he could already be considered as a top tier defensive lineman altogether. And it's only been 6 weeks, so opposing lines better watch out. Up next for the Chargers is Tuli Tuipulotu. This guy came out of nowhere, but his impact cannot be denied. night. The rookie out of USC already has 2 sacks paired with 14 solo tackles, which is honestly quite solid, especially given that he is not a first rounder. Moving on to the Texans, CJ Stroud. I tried to warn y'all, but nobody listened, especially the Panthers. Stroud is looking like the best quarterback of this year's class, and he is having one of the best starts to a career ever. I mean, he literally hasn't thrown a single interception, and we're already heading on to week 7. Let that sink in. Stroud has been a top 10 passer this season, and if he continues down this path, he could very well be one of the few elite guys alongside with guys like Mahomes way sooner than most people think. Now for Washington, Emmanuel Forbes. He was selected during the first round of the draft, and even though his name hasn't been thrown around that often, he has been quite solid. He's made some rookie mistakes, but overall, he does look like the best player of this 2023 Commanders class. The talent is there, but I would just say let's give him some more time. On to the Jets, Joe Tippmann. He was selected 43rd overall in the draft, and he's currently a big bright spot in what seems as a relatively bad draft class over in New York. Tippmann has been a very solid lineman, and so far in 2023, he looks like he has what it takes to be a long-term solution for this team. Now for the Raiders is Michael Mayer. He was the 3rd tight end off the board back in April, and he has been playing quite good actually. He doesn't have the prettiest of situations, but he's still capable of making some amazing plays and helping this team out. Mayer could end up as the best tight end of this class, but hey, at least so far, he's for sure the best rookie over in Las Vegas. Moving on is Jordan Addison from Minnesota. The first round receiver out of USC is one of those guys who will probably disappear and then make an incredible explosive play. Well, Addison has been solid, and he has had those moments of greatness. Expect more from him moving on, as Justin Jefferson is set to miss some time, and someone has to step up as the team's #1 receiver. Up next, Khalid Kansi. He has only played 2 games. This because he got injured week 1 against the Vikings. However, he showcased a lot of potential in those games, and let's be real here. The Buccaneers draft class this year was nothing amazing, so there isn't really a lot of competition. Now for the Buffalo Bills is Dalton Kincaid. And there he is, the first tight end taken in this year's draft. Kincaid has been quite a reliable option for Josh Allen despite sharing some targets with Dawson Knox. He has some insane potential, and it seems to me as if he's already feeling pretty comfortable in this Bills scheme. Then for the Broncos is Marvin Mims. The 2nd rounder out of Oklahoma has honestly been incredible to start out the 2023 campaign, especially considering he's playing alongside Jerry Jeudy and Courtland Sutton. I would dare to say he's the most explosive receiver of this year's class, and for me, he's 100% the best rookie over in Denver. Moving on to the Bears, I have Darnell Wright. Chicago picked him up 10th overall in the draft, and I'm not gonna lie, I thought that was a huge reach. Well, it probably wasn't. Wright has been a top tier lineman through these first 6 weeks, and probably a big factor in Justin Fields' improvement this season. Up next, Anthony Richardson for the Colts. He was probably overshadowed by both Stroud and Young, but the moment he stepped into the field, he started making a difference. He may be out for the season, but the talent he displayed is undeniable. Besides, he was playing pretty darn good before getting injured, especially for a rookie quarterback. Then for the Cardinals, Michael Wilson. Unless you're an Arizona fan, you probably don't know this guy, and that's because he's been heavily overlooked in 2023. Still, he currently has over 300 yards and has scored twice in just 6 games, which is an amazing pace given that he was selected 94th overall in the draft. Now for Atlanta, Bijan Robinson. This guy is just incredible. Robinson is arguably the most talented running back to enter the NFL draft in this decade, and so far he has lived up to the expectations. 400 yards, 5 yards per carry, yes please. He's yet to score a touchdown, but I'm sure it'll come, and he's still the best rookie for Atlanta 100%. Moving on to Jacksonville, Anton Harrison. He's been solid even though he hasn't been what you would call a top tier offensive lineman. However, Jacksonville's rookie class isn't that deep, and I had to give the spot to someone, and that someone for me is clearly Harrison. Up next for the Packers is Jayden Reed. He stepped in big time the first few weeks, and even though his performance may decline with Christian Watson coming back, he has the talent to make big plays. He was drafted round 2, and so far that's looking like a pretty profitable decision by Green Bay. For the New England Patriots, I'll take Christian Gonzalez. I was convinced he was the best cornerback of the class, and well, unfortunately, we won't be able to see if that's true due to his season-ending injury. Regardless, Gonzalez had a huge impact in the field and was pretty much already established as a defensive leader over in New England. Moving on, Zay Flowers for Baltimore. He's probably the most talented receiver of this year's class, but he's been honestly underutilized so far. However, he has still been quite productive, and for me, it's pretty clear Lamar Jackson already sees him as the #1 option. Not like there's a superstar wideout over in Baltimore, but that's a pretty cool feat to achieve as a rookie. And finally for the Saints, Brian Bresee. He hasn't been amazing, that's a fact, but being realistic, neither have the rest of the Saints 2023 rookie class. class. Bresee currently has a sack and a half while racking up a couple of tackles. The potential is there, but I think he still needs some time to actually play at the level he knows he can. Anyways, that's all for today's video. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.